Have you ever wondered why your manifestations feel so far away, even when you try with all your strength? There is a hidden moment almost no one notices. It's not loud, it doesn't announce itself, but it silently decides the outcome of your journey. It is the instant the ego slips into the driver's seat. It whispers, if I control harder, visualize longer, repeat affirmations endlessly, then the universe must obey me. It sounds convincing because society taught us. Effort equals reward. But in the quantum field, this logic collapses. The field doesn't bend to pressure, it mirrors resonance. And here lies the paradox. The more the ego pushes, the more it radiates lack. The more it complicates, the more it builds walls against its own desires. What you think is helping you is often the very thing closing the door. Picture a seed being planted. The ego cannot bear the stillness of waiting, so it digs up the soil again and again, drowning it with too much water, tugging at the tender sprout before it can root. What grows from this impatience? Nothing. This is how so many treat their dreams. Intentions are planted, but never allowed to breathe. Control, doubt, timelines, and comparisons suffocate what could have blossomed. In quantum physics, the law is coherence. Harmony between particles, waves in rhythm, energy flowing as one. When your being is coherent, the field responds instantly. But simplicity terrifies the ego. It whispers, life cannot be that effortless. There must be struggle, strategies, proof. This is the trap. The ego thrives in complexity because problems make it feel alive. Yet the field only hears frequency, and frequency is distorted when the mind adds static. Even neuroscience confirms it. The ego, housed in constant analysis, triggers the body into survival. The heart races, cortisol floods, and the signal broadcast is not trust, not abundance, but fear. No matter the words you repeat or visions you hold, the field only receives the frequency, I don't have, I'm not enough. And the universe, like a flawless mirror, only echoes back what you radiate. The harder you push, the further the dream drifts from your reach. For centuries, wisdom keepers have warned us of this trap. Mystics spoke of the false self, endlessly grasping for control. Buddhists called it Maya, the veil of illusion. Christ spoke of dying to the old self so spirit may be reborn. Modern teachers name it the egoic mind. Different words, but one truth. The ego cannot birth miracles because it does not trust ease. It only speaks the language of effort and struggle. But the quantum field is not separation. It is unity, flow, wholeness. And when you release the ego's grip, you are carried into that wholeness. Here is the paradox. The ego believes surrender means losing control. Yet in the field, surrender is the only true control. Not control through force, but through alignment. Picture a surfer on a vast ocean. The ego demands the tide to obey, the waves to bend, the currents to shift. But the master does not command the sea. They merge with it, they move in rhythm, and the wave carries them. Not because they fought it, but because they trusted its flow. This is quantum manifestation. The field is the wave. The soul rides it. The ego never can. So if manifestation feels heavy, if practices exhaust you, if the results never seem to arrive, it is not the field resisting you. It is the ego, weaving endless conditions, multiplying steps, layering doubts. The truth is far simpler. Alignment is natural, coherence is effortless, resonance is your birthright. So hold this question gently in your heart. What if the key to your manifestation was not adding more, but removing? What if the only block was the voice inside that cannot accept life could be this simple? Stay with me, because next we will explore why the ego fears simplicity so fiercely, and why only by dissolving that fear can you step into the effortless current of the quantum field. At its core, the ego is terrified of ease. It survives by manufacturing puzzles to solve, battles to win, mountains to climb. When things unfold with grace, the ego feels invisible, unnecessary. And so, in the sacred art of manifestation, it secretly complicates what was always meant to flow with ease. It whispers, if it's this simple, it must be an illusion. The ego whispers, if I'm not struggling, then I must not be doing enough. And so people pile on more rituals, more affirmations, more steps, feeding the mind's addiction to complexity. But here is the deeper truth. The universe does not respond to effort, it responds to frequency. And frequency is born in coherence, not complication. Einstein once reminded us, everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. He understood the elegance of nature. The laws of physics do not tangle themselves in excess. They speak profound truths through the simplest equations. E equals mc squared, short, pure, complete. In the same way, the quantum field does not require endless rituals or desperate control. It answers to your state of being, your alignment, your resonance. The ego, however, craves guarantees, timelines, safety nets. But all those layers only blur your signal, like static drowning out a clear melody. Even quantum mechanics reveals this. In the double-slit experiment, particles remain as waves of possibility until observed. And then, without struggle, without force, they collapse into matter instantly. Pure simplicity at the most fundamental level of reality. Yet the ego resists this ease. It wants to insert effort where none is required. It turns the natural collapse of possibility into a maze of endless steps. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains it well. Most people are addicted to the familiar emotions of stress, control, and fear. The body feels unsafe unless it is doing something, but constant doing only reinforces a vibration of lack. It repeats the message, I don't have it yet, so I must fight harder to get it. And that very frequency keeps the dream at arm's length. But when you release the struggle, when the heart and mind enter coherence, something shifts. You stop chasing the future and instead become it. And in that state of being, the field answers instantly. Healings begin to unfold. Synchronicities weave themselves into your days. Timelines bend and shift, not because you did more, but because you finally allowed more. Yet the ego calls allowance weakness. It argues, if you stop striving, nothing will happen. But physics whispers the opposite. Energy always moves through the path of least resistance. Manifestation arises not through effort, but through coherence. When you release complication, your field becomes clear, ordered, magnetic. And the universe, as an immaculate mirror, reflects that purity back to you. But when you cloud it with doubts and demands, you scatter the signal. And the mirror reflects that too. Delays, scarcity, confusion. The irony is cruel. The ego then points at the chaos it created and declares, see, you need me. You need more effort. And so the cycle feeds itself. But spiritual traditions have long revealed the simplicity of truth. Jesus said, unless you become as little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. Children do not complicate. They imagine freely. They trust without hesitation. Their hearts are coherent, their energy unburdened. That is why what they dream often arrives with such immediacy. The ego, however, is like a lawyer who never stops arguing. It layers conditions on your soul. You cannot rest until you have proof. You cannot rejoice until the result appears. You cannot trust until you control every piece. But the quantum field does not respond to arguments. It answers only to vibration, and vibration shines clearest when it is simple. Here lies the paradox. The ego equates complexity with control, but in truth, complexity only builds resistance. Simplicity, on the other hand, is alignment. Complexity chains you to survival. Simplicity liberates you into creation. This is why so many struggle with manifestation. They hand the process to the ego, piling on rituals, strategies, endless effort, until the signal is lost in static. But those who remember how to simplify, to feel instead of force, to trust instead of chase, to align instead of overthink, these are the ones who experience effortless quantum leaps. So ask yourself with honesty, is your ego overcomplicating what was always meant to be natural? Are you adding layers of ritual and control to a process designed for ease? If so, you are not failing. You are simply caught in the ego's trap. Have you ever noticed that the harder you try, the further away your desires seem to drift? The paradox is this: what you're chasing cannot be reached by more effort, but by less. The path forward is not in adding layers of complexity, but in remembering the power of simplicity. When you finally release the ego's obsession with control, you begin to see what was always true. The universe has never withheld anything from you. The only thing missing was your trust. Stay with me, because we're about to explore something most people never realize: the science of overthinking. How your mind, when ruled by ego, can literally rewire your nervous system into survival mode, and how that very state becomes the invisible wall blocking the manifestations you're reaching for. Be honest with yourself. How many nights have you lain awake, repeating the same thought on a loop? How many times have you set a clear intention, only to immediately question it? When will it come? How will it come? What if it never comes? That spiral is not clarity, it's the ego, disguised as responsibility, dressed up as preparation. In truth, it's a trap, and it is one of the greatest obstacles to quantum manifestation. Here's why. Your brain is a prediction engine. Neuroscientists call it predictive coding. It constantly scans the present moment, compares it to your memories, and projects possible futures. But if you've lived years in stress or disappointment, your brain predicts more of the same. So even when you affirm, "I want abundance," your subconscious whispers, "Last time you tried that, you failed." Better prepare for loss. That forecast flips your nervous system into survival mode. And when you're in survival, your body can't tell the difference between an actual danger and a fear you imagined. The response is the same: cortisol, adrenaline, shallow breath, racing pulse. Instead of transmitting abundance, you start broadcasting fear. Studies from the HeartMath Institute reveal this simple but profound truth. Your physiological state directly shapes your intuition and your capacity to manifest. When your heart rhythms are erratic under stress, your perception narrows. You literally cannot see the opportunities, synchronicities, or pathways the universe is placing in front of you. But when your heart rhythm is coherent, your mind and body synchronize. Awareness expands. The door to the quantum field opens. Overthinking destroys that coherence. It locks you inside a feedback loop of survival, where the only thing you manifest is more evidence to worry about. Dr. Joe Dispenza often reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. Who you are inside shapes the world you live in. Your personality becomes your personal reality. If your inner state is addicted to control, to stress, to endless analysis, then your life will echo those patterns back to you. You remain in the same cycles, not because destiny is against you, but because your energy has not yet shifted. Overthinking is the ego's clever disguise. It tells you that worry equals safety, that constant analysis equals progress. But in truth, it only tightens the vibration of lack and separation. Quantum physics offers us a mirror. In superposition, a particle exists in countless possibilities. But the moment we measure it, the wave collapses into one outcome. Overthinking is like measuring reality again and again through the same rigid lens. Instead of allowing new possibilities to unfold, the ego collapses life back into the same familiar script. It is like standing at the doorway of a new future, yet choosing to step back into the old one simply because the unknown feels too frightening. Every spiritual tradition has warned us of this trap. Buddhism calls it the monkey mind, the restless chatter that never stops. Lao Tzu whispered in the Tao Te Ching, "Stop thinking and end your problems." Not to deny the mind, but to remind us that endless analysis breeds endless suffering. Mystics long ago saw what science is only now confirming. The mind's obsession with control blocks the natural flow of life. And here lies the great irony. Overthinking feels like progress. The ego insists, if I just think harder, I'll find the answer. But in the quantum field, answers don't come from more effortful thought. They arise from resonance. They emerge when your vibration lifts into coherence, when the mind grows still enough to hear the quiet voice of intuition. Think back to when your greatest ideas arrived, not in a storm of overthinking, but in the stillness of a shower, a walk, or just before sleep. Those insights came not from force, but from space, from openness, from the moment the ego finally loosened its grip and the field could speak. So what can you do? Begin with awareness. Notice when you're caught in the loop. when your chest tightens, when your thoughts race, when your nervous system is on high alert. In that instant, pause, breathe slowly and deeply. Bring your attention to your heart. This small act begins to shift your body from survival into harmony. Your signal clears, the static fades, and once again, you start tuning into the frequency of the reality you long to embody. Overthinking is not your failure. It is simply the conditioning you've inherited. Yet the instant you notice it, you awaken to a choice. You can continue collapsing into the same predictable timelines, or you can step into the unknown with trust, knowing the field responds not to your doubts but to your coherence. The ego will always try to lure you into analysis, control, and endless complication. But you are not the ego. You are the witness. You are the current of awareness itself. And when you stop letting the ego run its loops, you finally allow the field to deliver what has always been waiting for you. Stay with me, because next we'll uncover the clear signs that the ego is interfering with your manifestation and how to shift them instantly into alignment. By now you may see that the ego doesn't always show up as arrogance or pride. In manifestation, it hides beneath the masks of logic, responsibility, planning, and even spiritual routines. Its disguises are so convincing that most people spend years manifesting from ego without realizing it, drained by rituals that never truly work. But the quantum field is precise. It doesn't answer to masks, it answers to frequency. And when the frequency is born of ego, the result will always feel heavy, delayed, or incomplete. So how can you tell when ego is standing in the way of your manifestation? Let's break it into 3 clear signs. The first, repeating desires without embodiment. You speak the words, you write affirmations, you fill vision boards, yet deep inside you don't feel it as already real. The ego keeps you circling in the loop of wanting, never crossing into the vibration of being. It convinces you that repetition equals progress, but repetition without embodiment is only static. It's the frequency of lack disguised as effort. The second, demanding proof before surrender. The ego whispers, "I'll believe it when I see it." But in the quantum field, reality works in reverse. You will see it only when you first believe. Waiting for evidence before allowing trust radiates the frequency of doubt. It's like telling the field, "I don't trust you yet." And naturally, the field mirrors that back. Manifestations stall not because the universe withholds, but because the ego refuses to trust first. 3. The trap of obsessing over the how. The ego craves control. It demands to know each step, each outcome, each detail of the timeline. It whispers, "If I don't figure this out, it won't happen." But manifestation is not born from logic. It flows through resonance. When you fixate on the mechanics, you shrink the infinite into a narrow hallway. You cut yourself off from the countless ways the universe could deliver. The ego thinks it's protecting you, yet all it does is block the miracle. Here's the liberating truth. Once you see the pattern, you are no longer bound by it. Awareness is the first crack in the ego's armor. The moment you recognize, this is only my ego complicating again, a distance is created. You step away from the voice of control and lean into the quiet current of intuition. That subtle shift alone begins to clear your signal. Now let's make it real. Pause for a moment and reflect. Where in your life has the ego turned something simple into something tangled? Where have you been repeating instead of embodying, doubting instead of trusting, controlling instead of allowing? There is no need for judgment, no need for battle, only acknowledgement and a gentle release. Because every time you loosen the grip of the ego, you return to coherence. And coherence is the only language the quantum understands. To anchor this shift, make a declaration, not to me, not even to the world, but directly to the field. Say it or type it if you wish. I release control. This is not just a phrase, it is a quantum command. When spoken with intention, it signals your nervous system, your subconscious, and the field itself that you are ready to move out of ego and into alignment. You are no longer pleading with the universe, you are resonating with it. And notice what happens when you hold this declaration. The mind begins to quiet, the body softens, the frequency shifts. Because the field doesn't need your overthinking. It needs your coherence. The ego complicates, but the soul simplifies. The ego doubts, but the field reflects. And the instant you affirm, I release control, you enter the simplicity that the quantum always rewards. Stay with me, because next we will go deeper into the essence of this shift. What it truly means to move beyond the ego into effortless manifestation, and how that state transforms not only your desires, but the entire fabric of your life. If the ego is the static, coherence is the music. The shift beyond ego is not about erasing it, it is about restoring it to its proper role. The ego was never designed to lead your manifestations. Its purpose is practical, to guard, to organize, to execute. But when it takes the wheel, life becomes a grind of constant effort, a struggle to force outcomes. The quantum field does not require the ego's striving. It responds only to your alignment. And when you drop back into that state of alignment, manifestation ceases to be a chase. It becomes a natural unfolding. Picture the ego as a flashlight. It can only illuminate a narrow beam, useful in survival, but painfully limited. True creation asks for another kind of light, the radiance of the sun, spilling in all directions, touching everything at once. That radiance is your higher self, the part of you that perceives the field, feels the invisible threads, trusts the unseen connections. To move beyond ego is to step out of the narrow beam and into the sun, from control into illumination. Even science confirms this transition. Brain imaging of advanced meditators, like those observed in Dr. Joe Dispenza's studies, reveals decreased activity in the default mode, network, the seat of self-referential chatter, the voice of the ego. At the same time, neural regions begin to synchronize, forming what researchers call global coherence. This is the biological fingerprint of moving beyond ego. No longer a fractured signal, but harmony. And when brain and heart enter this rhythm together, the quantum field responds in an instant. People speak of sudden healings, uncanny synchronicities, and manifestations that seem to bend the rules of logic. These shifts don't come from grinding harder, but from stepping out of the small self and into coherence. Ancient teachings have always whispered this truth. Yogis spoke of dissolving the illusory self. Mystics described dying to the little I so that the divine could awaken. Neville Goddard taught of living from the end, embodying your desires so completely that no separation remains between you and it. All of these voices pointed to the same essence. The ego thrives on division, but the higher self breathes unity. In the instant you shift into that unity, manifestation is no longer something you chase. It becomes what you are. Here lies the paradox that turns into your power. Transcending the ego doesn't mean abandoning action. It means your action becomes pure alignment. No longer frantic or fear-driven, your steps flow with precision and grace. You stop forcing the river and instead ride its current. Like the surfer who surrenders to the wave, your energy carries you effortlessly into harmony with your desire. The ego clings to control. The higher self seeks flow, and flow is always what the field responds to. The difference in feeling is unmistakable. When you operate from ego, manifestation feels heavy, pressured, uncertain. When you rise beyond it, manifestation feels weightless, expansive, inevitable. You no longer beg the question, when will it come? You live from the knowing that it is already unfolding. This is why mystics radiated such peace. They were not trying to convince themselves. They were simply inhabiting the state where manifestation was already a given. Their vibration itself became their prayer, their coherence, their command. So what does this look like in your everyday life? It is choosing breath over panic, trust over control, simplicity over complication. Asking yourself, what would this look like if it were simple? That one question alone can dissolve the grip of ego and open the door for the field to move. Because simplicity is not laziness, it is alignment. And alignment is always the shortest bridge between you and the life you seek. This is the great turning, from effort to resonance, from ego to essence. And once you taste it, you cannot return to the old way. You realize the ego was never the one creating. It was only ever the one blocking. The true creator has always been your coherent self, the the self that trusts, aligns, and allows. And when you begin to live from this space, manifestation stops feeling like a struggle. It flows through you as naturally as breath itself. Stay with me, because in the final activation, I'll guide you to anchor this shift fully. A practice that doesn't just spark coherence for a moment, but stabilizes it so you can create consistently without sliding back into the old traps of ego. If you've made it here, it's because some part of you already knows. The ego was never your enemy. It was only noise to be softened, an outdated filter waiting to be released. The truth is, your power was never in control, but in coherence. Not in complexity, but in simplicity. Not in chasing, but in becoming. Quantum manifestation was never meant to be difficult. It isn't about pushing harder, thinking longer, or managing every detail. It is about embodying the vibration of your desired reality so completely that the field has no choice but to mirror it back. Einstein once reminded us, nature hides her genius in simplicity, and modern science now confirms what mystics always knew, as Dr. Joe Dispenza shows, when your mind and heart beat in harmony, your body stops surviving and begins creating. The moment you begin living from that inner stillness, manifestation stops being effort and starts flowing as naturally as breath itself. Stay with me, because in the final activation, I'll show you how to fully anchor this shift and how to deepen it with a practice that stabilizes your coherence, so that creation becomes consistent, steady, and free from the ego's old traps. If you've come this far, then a part of you already recognizes the truth. The ego was never an enemy to defeat. It was simply the noise to quiet. Never the villain, only the outdated lens that blurred your vision. The real power has always lived in your coherence, in your simplicity, in the pure resonance of who you already are. Quantum manifestation is not complicated. It is not about tightening your grip, thinking harder, or forcing details into place. It is about becoming the frequency of your desired outcome and letting the quantum field reflect that vibration back to you. Einstein reminded us that nature moves with elegance and its genius lies in simplicity. Joe Dispenza shows us that when the brain and the heart enter coherence, the body shifts out of survival and into creation. And Neville Goddard revealed that to live from the end, to embody the state of already done, is the real secret of creation itself. All of these voices across science and spirituality converge into one timeless truth. The ego complicates, but the universe simplifies. So imagine this. You wake up not asking how it will happen, but resting in the knowing that it already is. You walk into challenges not with fear, but with curiosity, trusting that the field is rearranging itself to match your frequency. You stop searching for signs because you are the sign. People around you may not understand, but they will feel the shift in your presence. Your coherence radiates outward, and coherence always collapses reality in your favor. This is the invitation I leave you with. Stop manifesting from ego. Release the urge to overcomplicate. Trust the brilliance of simplicity, because simplicity is not weakness. It is quantum intelligence. It is the most efficient, powerful rhythm of the universe. And the moment you align with it, you stop struggling to make life happen and begin creating with effortless grace. Remember, the quantum field doesn't respond to the one who tries the hardest, but to the one who vibrates the clearest. The ego will whisper that you're not doing enough, that it must be more complicated, that it cannot be this simple. But your higher self already knows better. Quantum manifestation is simple. Alignment is power, and you are already the signal. So take a deep breath. Anchor this frequency. Step forward as the creator you were always destined to be. Until we meet again, stay coherent, stay radiant, and remember this truth. Simplicity collapses miracles. If this message awakens something inside you, let me know in the comments. Share what shifted for you today, because your words may become the spark for someone else's awakening. And if you wish to keep walking this path with me, remember to like this video and subscribe. That way, each time we release a new transmission, you'll already be aligned to receive it. Until then, keep shining, keep resonating, and let the universe meet you where you stand.